Chapter 5 Disembodied Direction. The First Hell.
Attention, citizens.
A strange female voice echoed in the air around Crinnan, and he couldn't help but stop and listen.
The content pack, DJ's Fury, has been successfully implemented into the Blood Games program on the 2nd level. We invite any and all capable to come and experience the new environment. Rewards will be provided for the first 2,000 who participate. Furthermore, our development team is aware of the unexpected bug that has appeared in the system, causing players to respawn as prisoners upon death. We ask any affected by this bug to find a GM on the 1st level so they may be protected from any misunderstandings with fellow players. Additionally, we ask that all player versus player interactions cease until this bug is fixed. The system will be temporarily locked down as our developers work to fix this issue. During this time, for your safety, logging in and out functions will briefly be suspended. Rest assured, this will not last long. All players currently logged in will be compensated at a rate of 2 times playtime in-game during this brief lockdown. We thank you for your cooperation, citizens. Praise Durana. Praise Sidro.
Whatever that means. Crinnan shrugged as the voice ended. He didn't know anything about the Hells or any of the people within it, so most of what he heard was just gibberish. He did find it interesting, however, to hear that Blood Games matches were going on. He and his friend Alec had watched a number of Blood Games matches on their television back home in their dormitory, so he was relatively familiar with the whole last person standing idea. It never occurred to Crinnan, though, that the Blood Games matches were held in the Hells. Why would it have? Crinnan had thought the Hells were just a fictional place of eternal punishment after death. He thought it all was a lie created by the Govian Empire to keep people in line. Just another story. But then, he woke up after his death. Crinnan had lost track of time. He didn't know if hours or days were passing. He traversed the cracked, ashy, and flaming ground of the Hells, clearing rolling hills, climbing steep grades, and crossing wide gorges. No suns in sight, the light was cast only from the fires beneath him. The things he saw as he walked were unforgettable. He watched the players rip prisoners limb from limb. He saw people being cooked alive, buried while screaming for mercy, slowly flayed and consumed by their overlords. And the sex was everywhere. He saw demons fucking demons, prisoners fucking prisoners, demons fucking prisoners, both consensually and not. It was obscene, perverted, and violent, and Crinnan felt incredibly uncomfortable as he marched his naked body toward whatever he was walking toward. All Crinnan had done since he killed the succubus was walk alone. For a long time he did not hear the mysterious yet helpful voices of Sage or Lucaas. He wondered if they had abandoned him, or perhaps he was unreachable, or maybe they had died themselves. He did not know. Eventually, he started to feel like the Hells had a sense of ironic humor and was giving him exactly what he desired when he had been alive: to be completely alone. In the time that Crinnan walked, he had thought of many things. He, of course, thought of his parents, his most instinctive sort of comfort. In life, he had not spoken to them much, for over the years they had grown distant. Crinnan's father was the commander of the Black Knight underground base in Canrom City, the largest city in all of the continent of Redodra. He was a carefree risk-taker, had made a career of trusting his heart over his mind and charging headfirst into battle, and somehow always winning. His mother was older than his father by many decades. She was an elf, he a human. She balanced his impulsiveness, acted as a voice of reason. She was at times cold, but Crinnan knew she loved him. He, of course, loved her, but it was not something they spoke of. Very much unlike his father, who rained praises and love down on all his children. That polar experience of parental love was comforting. Crinnan couldn't help but imagine himself as a child, once again locked in his mother's silent, yet firm embrace. He thought of his friends, Alec and Alia, and of how terribly he missed their incessant badgering. He wondered if there was any chance of him ever seeing them again. He expected Alia would one day join him in the Hells, but he was quickly realizing that Alec never could. Alia was a fair, one of the native races of Duran, known for their petite bodies and colorful hair. Alec, like Crinnan's father, was Human, a race that had come to the planet via ships that sailed in the stars long ago. He hadn't seen a single Human in the Hells. The Empire considered Crinnan a terrorist. Crinnan had only seen his twin brother Rubon once since he had left the army and become a Govian citizen. He did not look down on his brother for the choices he had made. It was his life to ruin, Crinnan thought. His brother was doing what he felt he had to do to be happy and protect his family and new way of life. Crinnan was glad that Rubon had the strength to at least try. After what seemed like an eternity of walking, Crinnan's shoulders were slumped and his gaze was cast downward. Everything was the same for miles. More fire, more ash, more smoke and screaming and blood. Eventually, Crinnan came across, of all things, a well made of shaped stone. With a dry throat, Crinnan picked up his pace and hurried forward. He placed his hands on the side of the well and looked down inside. For a moment, he thought he saw the rippling of water. He leaned in for a better look, and a dozen long-fingered gray hands suddenly reached up out of the well, digging their nails into Crinnan. "Join us!" The shrill voices within the well echoed. They pulled against his naked skin, trying to drag him within. Crinnan resisted, planting the soles of his feet in the dirt beside the well. He pulled back and batted at the emaciated, rubbery-skinned arms, cursing and bleeding as he did. The hands did not let go. They pulled harder and harder, and Crinnan's feet were lifting off the ground. His body was dragged across the rim of the well, and the fingers started to rip into him. "Join us!" the voices continued. "Join us!" "Fucking stop!" Crinnan cried out. Finally, with a well-placed strike, he swung his sword and severed one of the hands. The rest quickly retreated, leaving Crinnan shredded and bleeding profusely. "By the brothers!" Crinnan rasped as he pulled himself to safety. "That stings!" he groaned. As he fell to the ground, his peripherals were enveloped with a flashing red, as if blood was circling his eyes. He had never encountered a sensation like that when he was alive, and deduced that it was signifying he was hurt. "Not that the blood doesn't already tell me that," Crinnan quipped as he crashed to the ground. Ash blasted up his butt crack when he landed, but he didn't care by that point. He reached down and touched the muddy blood on him, and then looked at his fingers. His skin was almost completely black from the filth he had accumulated while walking for so long. His hair was matted and disgusting, and the blood on his chest and belly were mixing with it all. He pressed his back up against the stones of the well and rested his head. With a sigh, he closed his eyes. "Lesson 1. Never trust a well in hell," the voice of Sage declared. "Are you okay?" "Never better," Crinnan said, not moving his head or opening his eyes. He took a few breaths and shook his head. "I guess you didn't abandon me then." "That is correct," Sage replied. "I should say that I am quite sorry it took as long as it did. Avoiding Govia while I manipulate their systems is rather difficult and is generally met with unpredictable results. Though I finally feel comfortable transmitting again." "Well, glad you feel comfortable," Crinnan sarcastically remarked. "The last thing I would want is to inconvenience you." "I should say there is no need for hostility, my boy," Sage commented. "Though your frustration is understandable." "My frustration is understandable," Crinnan snorted as he finally had a reason to lift his head from the stones of the well. "How could you possibly understand my frustration? I am here. You are there, probably in an air-conditioned house with something to drink. What about any of this is understandable? When the fuck was the last time you were in the hells?
The last time I escaped was nearly 100 years ago,
Sage casually answered.
For the first time in our lives, the one known as Eon and I worked together.
Crinnan couldn't come up with a response. He had not expected that answer. Whatever, he grumbled as he rested his head and closed his eyes again.
I do understand, Crinnan,
Sage said softly.
And I am sorry for the silence. I know the hells can be a lonely place.
It's fine, Crinnan grumbled.
My dear Crinnan, it will be a bit of work and time before we can get you out of there,
Sage regretfully informed him.
We are going to have to rip that dark sky completely open and pluck your data out. The weakest point is going to be the oldest zone and home of the data stream, the 7th level of the hells. Today, I hope to get you to the 2nd level.
The 2nd level, Crinnan repeated. He remembered the disembodied female announcer voice saying that the Blood Games was in the 2nd level. So, what kind of wonderful journey will that be?
You will have to kill more demons and eventually a portal will open,
Lucaas piped in.
Killing the succubus helped you, but she wasn't enough. She was a newer player, not very strong. The stronger the player you kill, the higher your ranking will go. To get to the next level, you have to cross the 90th percentile marker. Terminology, Lucaas,
Sage interrupted.
Remember, he is ignorant.
Lucaas huffed and then continued.
Just, kill things. Eventually you'll open a portal. Crinnan.
Sage sighed and took over.
There is just so much you do not know.
So tell me, Crinnan insisted. I've got the fucking time.
The hells,
Sage began.
They are not a real thing, I should say. It is... how should I put this? They are a sick video game,
Lucaas chirped and interrupted Sage.
A twisted version of the utopian afterscape that Lifelinks created so long ago.
What is a video game? Crinnan asked. He had seen videos before on television. He knew what games were, but did not spend any time playing them. Drinking or training was more productive in his opinion. The word video game, however, was foreign to him.
In Govia, playing a video game is something that people do to pass the time,
Sage replied.
You see, a video game is a game that the Govians play on their computers.
Game for a computer? Crinnan repeated, a bit dumbfounded by the concept. People have their own computers in Govia?
People have everything in Govia,
Sage chuckled.
Cars, computers, streaming pornography, phones. You name it, Govians have access to it.
So the hells is something people play? Through everything he had experienced, Crinnan was starting to vaguely understand the concept of it. But how did anyone play any of what he was experiencing? His idea of a game involved cards, dice, paper, sometimes a knife and a rabbit. The world he was experiencing seemed real.
I will try to explain,
Lucaas chimed in.
People step into a big silver egg thing that's called a hell pod. It's completely dark inside and they essentially go to sleep. When they wake up, they are where you are, in the hells. They see it the same way you do, except they can just click a button, wake up, and go back to their lives. It's not real to them. Well, not until now. Yes,
Sage agreed.
You see, long ago in the ancient times, people lived and died, just like they do today. However, in those times, there was a technology called the afterscape. Basically, after the human aliens arrived, they revealed to the ancient people that beyond the clouds there was no god, no goddesses, only dark. This majorly affected them as they were a heavily superstitious people whose entire infrastructure was built upon the idea of being rewarded or punished after death. As the ancients learned the ways and technology of the human people, they eventually created a virtual afterlife based off the technology of the humans. It was one that could be guaranteed to people upon death.
So people died and went to a computer? Crinnan asked.
Exactly,
Sage replied.
You see, everywhere you look, and the air you breathe, and the ground you walk upon, are machines called the Nane. They are microscopic. You cannot see them with your naked eye. You may know them better by what they do. You may call it magic or sorcery, but I will tell you that it was by far the greatest technology that the human people gave to us. Rather, it could have been. Anyway, one thing that these nani do is they record everything about us. They record our memories, our physical features, our learned ways of reasoning and communicating, and store it in an ever-updating file called a blueprint. Back in ancient times, when a person died, their blueprint would be uploaded to the Afterscape server, and they could digitally live forever with their loved ones doing the things they enjoyed. This, of course, was all before the Church won the war and started the Empire. Once the Church, or the Govian Empire, as they are now called, took hold of the world, they redesigned the technology and changed the Afterscape to heaven and the hells. When you died, your blueprint was automatically sent to the hells as punishment for defying the Govian Empire.
So, you're saying that not only is there no goddess, but also right now I'm walking around inside a computer? Crinnan could not believe the words that were coming out of his mouth. It sounded like absolute nonsense.
Yes, well, a computer program to be more precise, and a bastardized version of what it once was.
Sage's tone had a hint of resentment in it. What about my soul? Crinnan asked.
Not my area of expertise,
Sage replied dismissively. So, how will you get me out of here? Crinnan asked. I mean, what will happen to me once I get out if all I am is computer stuff?
Data.
Sage laughed at the poor, ignorant boy.
Computer stuff is called data. Anyway, we will take your nani and put it back in your body, and then you will regenerate.
Bullshit, Crinnan spat. That's just so
unbelievable,
Sage hummed.
Listen, my boy. All my life I have been in the business of bringing dreams to reality. I want you to think about it for a moment. There you are, in the hells. I am talking to you whilst you travel the plane of unending damnation, and you are able to talk back. Not only that, but I am doing it through a computer. I know it's difficult for someone such as yourself to understand, but I should say, Crinnan, what is it you believe you have to lose by trusting me?
Whatever, Crinnan replied. So, how do I move to deeper levels?
Well, like I said, you kill people and monsters and raise your ranking. And that's the interesting thing about your situation,
Lucaas said.
The demons you fight are real people. They upload their nani into these avatars to fulfill their sick fantasies. They're not soldiers. Most of them have never harmed another person in their lives. You see, it was never intended for demons or players to be killed in this game. Sage and I, we wrote this script, completely modded the game. We gave you an ability we created called Demon Slayer. Basically, what it does is once you reduce a demon's health to 0, their in-game status changes from demon to prisoner. Nobody by default can change what is coded in people's nani. Well, nobody but us. What I'm trying to say is if you kill a demon here, they stay here.
So, if they die in the game, they die in real life? Crinnan asked.
In a sense,
Sage replied.
If you kill them in the hells, their nani will respawn as a prisoner in the hells, and will not return to their physical bodies. Their real bodies will stay alive. They will just be devoid of consciousness.
What a stupid game, Crinnan said. Why would anybody play a game like this when they could die?
As we have explained, there has been no risk of harm until now,
Sage sighed.
The player versus player feature ensures that hit points never go below 1 and renders the losing player unconscious instead of dead. We removed that limitation and Govia will not be able to reinstate it.
Do the other demons know what they are doing? Crinnan asked. I mean, do they realize they are torturing people?
It is well known in Govia, yes,
Lucaas answered.
They feel that if a person is in the hells, then they deserve whatever happens to them. It's kind of part of the appeal. In Govia, sin is illegal in all its forms, like I've said. The Empire enforces at least 1 hour of playtime in the hells daily so that its citizens can sin there instead of causing trouble in the real world. It is very effective, and their social structure basically runs on your player's ranking in the Hells.
Then killing them sounds good to me, Crinnan said. He was not too keen on Govians in the first place. The idea that even the Empire's citizens were as twisted as its government made him hate it all the more. It takes a sick fuck to willingly do this to people. I'm fine with ending as many as I can find.
Then we have to go for now,
Sage informed him.
Remember, raise your rank until you are in the 90th percentile to get to the 2nd level. The only thing that truly threatens you down here is yourself. The demons can knock you out and make you respawn, but that is all. Do not succumb to the psychological bombardment that awaits you. You can do this, Crinnan. I believe in you.
How long will you be gone?
Until we aren't,
Sage replied.
We have to go now. We will talk again. Bye, man,
Lucaas said. At that, the word Virginius disappeared entirely from Crinnan's vision, and Sage and Lucaas went silent. Crinnan closed his eyes and sighed. He wondered how long he would have to stay in the Hells before he could get out. He wondered how many more people he had to kill before he could get to the 2nd level.